Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Wednesday. It's the end of October. It's October 30th. Tomorrow will be the 31st, Halloween. Today's day 390. 390 days since the attacks by Hamas on the south of Israel. There's a lot of moving pieces happening in terms of the ongoing atrocities in Gaza, the continued escalations and hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel. And I want to give you updates about those. I do want to ask, please pray for CMEP staff. We are getting ready to host the End Still We Rise Summit in Jericho in a couple of weeks in the occupied Palestinian territories. Almost everyone's flights have been canceled, even those of us who are flying into Amman. So we're all in the middle of scrambling. I'm supposed to leave in just a few days. I'm going early for meetings. And so there's, as if we weren't busy, then there's all this rearrangements and, our counterparts in the Palestinian leadership team have asked us to come and to be there with them. And if you want to join us, there's still time. So 3 days of being together to meet, to stand in solidarity, to pray, to focus on spirituality and family and trauma and healing and what collective liberation looks like for those of us who seek to follow Jesus, all while focusing on a human rights framework and calling for immediate end to all hostilities and the desperate need for diplomatic solutions as opposed to violence. So would just covet your prayers. There's a lot happening. Let me tell you what's actually happening in terms of the news and some updates in that regard. There was an Israeli strike on a residential building in North Gaza yesterday. I can't remember if we talked about that. 93 people were killed, according to the health ministry. The attack reported to have killed over 24 children. This was one of the deadliest in the north since Israel has intensified its offensive there. The IDF said it is investigating the incident. I did have a meeting with the Jordanian ambassador to the United States today. One of the things she shared is that there has not been significant improvement in terms of food and humanitarian access to the north. She said 50 trucks, which is inadequate in terms of the number of people who are still left in the north of the enclave. Israeli soldiers allegedly forced Palestinian men to take off their clothes to sit on a cold floor for several hours as they evacuated a North Gaza refugee camp used as a designated safe quarter last week. That was reported by CNN. The U.S. has asked Israel to explain yesterday's strike in North Gaza. Matthew Miller of the State Department said and described the attack as a horrifying incident with a horrifying result. Israel's words on Gaza's aid are not matched with the actions on the ground, said U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield. Separately, Miller, again at the State Department, said Israel has a legal obligation to allow humanitarian assistance in and not to erect roadblocks to humanitarian assistance. This is where I just want to shake. I just am so frustrated. This is what we have been saying since early October. This is what we've been saying. And now the US is saying it, but the question is, what are they going to do about it? Norway is initiating a UN resolution asking the International Court of Justice to clarify Israel's legal obligations to ensure that aid reaches Palestinians. This is following Israel's UNRWA ban. So on top of aid not reaching people in the north, UNRWA, which is one of the main distributors of aid in Gaza, there's this Knesset legislation that was just passed, UNRWA has been banned from Israel. Gaza's humanitarian crisis could develop into a famine unless the conditions on the ground improve, said the UN World Food Program. That warning came out yesterday. Israel is working to advance a framework that would allow or initially secure the release of a small number of hostages. This would be 8 or more in exchange for a 1-month ceasefire, adding that under the framework, the release of remaining hostages would resume with conditions set during negotiations. This is that strategy we were talking about of small incremental steps that would allow to build for more steps for the release of remaining hostages, leading towards a longer term, more permanent ceasefire. In terms of Israel and Hezbollah, there were strikes by the Israeli military on Lebanon's Bekaa Valley. Overnight, 67 people were wounded, 120 were injured. There were no Israeli evacuation orders given for the towns that were struck. There also was the first speech. Naim Qassem is the name of the deputy, or who became the successor to Hassan Nasrallah for Hezbollah, and he gave his first speech since succeeding Nasrallah. He said that he will keep the war plan devised by his predecessor while making changes in the developments on the ground, emphasizing that he will continue supporting Hamas in Gaza. There was a short interruption in the broadcast, which some reports attributed to a cyber attack. He said that if Israel decides to stop the war, we will accept it if the conditions suit us. But so far, there was no proposal that was acceptable to Israel and to Hezbollah that has come up for discussion. Qassem said that nothing works for them in this report. And while he was saying that, U.S. mediators have been working on a proposal that is a truce between Israel and Hezbollah that would begin with a 60-day ceasefire. This was told to Reuters. They added that a 2-month period would be used to finalize the implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 1701. That's the one that would have the demilitarization of Hezbollah, and Israel would have to withdraw off of the Lebanese border. That was adopted at the end of the 2006 war. It also would leave the control of South Lebanon to the Lebanese army and not Hezbollah. The deputy commander of Hezbollah's elite force, the Radwan force, Mustafa Ahmad Sahadi, was killed in an airstrike in South Lebanon in Nabatea, according to the IDF. And the Lebanese health ministry said that 11 people have been killed and 15 wounded in a strike that was in the Bekaa Valley. I don't know if any of you have been there to the Bekaa Valley. There are these historic ruins. I think they're Roman. They are just stunning. There is so much cultural heritage there. It is some of the most precious in all of Lebanon. I spent some time there a few years ago, and it's along the Syrian border. It's about 3 to 4 hours outside of Beirut. The U.S. responded to the attacks in the Bekaa Valley and said that the U.S. supports Israel's right to go after legitimate Hezbollah targets, but the State Department said that when Israel was having strikes in the city of Baalbek, where there are many of these historic sites, they said Israel must do so in a way that does not threaten the lives of civilians. And that it must protect critical civilian infrastructure and significant cultural heritage sites. Also, 2 senior Biden advisors are set to arrive in Israel tomorrow. They will be working on this deal that is an attempt to end the war in Lebanon that would allow the displaced civilians from both South Lebanon and the 60,000 or so that have been displaced since October from North Israel to return back to their homes. The Saturday attack on Iran by Israel struck multiple sensitive military sites and a major Islamic Revolutionary Guard missile production facility, according to satellite images. But Iran's missile production has not been disrupted following those airstrikes on the Islamic Republic, according to state media. And they were quoting the Iranian Defense Minister Aziz Nasserzadeh, who said that missile production has not been disrupted. And finally, investigators found devices with free Gaza messages at ballot box arson sites. In Oregon and Washington, officials cautioned that it is not clear if the perpetrator was actually a pro-Palestinian activist or someone using the prominent cause to be able to, to sow discord. So that's an update on the last 24 hours or so. Tomorrow is Thursday. I'll give the longer update, as if these updates aren't long enough. I'm sorry. When I get tired, I get more and more verbose. But please don't give up. Don't give up. That's my word for today. Don't give up. In the name of Christ. Amen.